DSG Podcast, we have discussed a number of topics, but this is something that we're going to talk about for the first time.
99% of the customers suggested that they would be more inclined towards purchasing commodities from any organization that at least plays any part.
This needs to be inculcated in all the accounting systems, I'd say, because right now, living in Lahore, looking at smog, I think we cannot say that climate change is not real.
The thing is that this network is not to be developed by only one organization. A culture needs to come. There you go.
Yeah.
It will lead towards competitive advantage and that will enhance the firm performance.
Hello and Assalamu Alaikum. Welcome back to another episode of DSG Podcast. Let's keep talking green. I'm Aman Fiaz Khan and I welcome you all to another episode. And today, interestingly, we're going to talk about one of the topics that we have never talked about before. And it is something which is need of the hour. It is something which is now the trend for the green businesses. So today we're going to talk about environmental management accounting. I know that for many people this will be a new term, but trust me, it is the new thing for the green businesses and the way towards, as we always say, the greener future of Pakistan. So today I have the honor of having Mr. Aideed Bashir with me, who is a renowned lecturer and educationist in Pakistan. He is a senior lecturer at University of Central Punjab. He has consulted for big names like Deloitte. He has previously been to London School of Economics and has also been awarded the LSE Excellence Award. So Mr. Aideed has a big names too in terms of management and accounting. So I'm honored to have him today with me, and without ado, we'll begin the session. So hello sir, how are you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's a delight to have over here. Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking out time. And as mentioned before, and we were having a word before, that in DSG Podcast, we have discussed a number of topics, but this is something that we're going to talk about for the first time. And this is, I think, that not many people know about, but they should know about, especially in the business community. So before we hop into the topic, I would like to know a little about your journey, how it started, how you got into the field. You went to London, you came back to Pakistan. So how has the journey been for you?
All right. So first of all, thank you so much for having me here. And it's a very interesting story. I actually, when I was doing my bachelor's thesis before moving on to London School of Economics, doing my research from the Lahore School of Economics, where I did my bachelor's from. So there was a lot of conversation going on back in the day about sustainability, about the concept of environmental management system. And that was a big thing. Not only in case of management studies, but even in the case of management accounting, various companies, because from the very beginning, many O-levels and A-level students used to, study these concepts that, the companies actually want to earn profit.
Okay.
Now, the one side of the story was that you augment the sales of the company, all right? But the other side was that you minimize the cost, all right? And in case of cost, the biggest concern, realistically and theoretically, if I speak, in the academic world, was that you need to minimize the environmental hazards that actually affect the overall operations of the organization and henceforth. So that is how I was very intrigued by this topic, and I got into it, and I actually extended it to the extent that for the fact that I got into the RBB theory, which talks about that if a certain organization is able to achieve the RIN attributes of a certain, you can say resource. So they can, achieve the competitive advantage. So with the passage of time, if I have to go back to the start of 2000s, all right? Diane Wasahili in their research, primarily which was documented in the UK, all right? So he suggested that, if the organizations are able to enhance their environmental management systems. Now, the first thing is, Aman, that the term itself seems like you actually have some sort of, a software or a network. It's not anything related to that. So environmental management system is just a behavioral aspect or an environment or an atmosphere in an organization where you are very serious, in minimizing the tangible as well as the intangible lags within the organization. All right. So with even in Pakistan, with the passage of time, many governmental bodies, likewise many non-for-profit organizations, I visited them. I presented my thesis. We talked about it, And, like in Pakistan, I suggested that, like if
Yeah.
this research, like where the organizations can see that by implementing environmental management system, by being a lot of serious, like by minimizing lag, by, like accounting for wastage, documenting them, that, like how much cost actually can be saved, you can actually, like motivate these organizations, multinational companies, local organizations, SMEs, like to actually utilize that. So that was my whole, like inclination towards this topic. Now, moreover, I would also like to add, I extended it for the fact because when I went towards the Western world, so I was so intrigued to see that the whole concept was so enhanced in those parts of the world.
And it was a common practice.
It was a common practice. And like because you have technology, fintech was coming.
Yeah.
And they were also including, like the inclusion of these financial technologies, cryptocurrencies, and henceforth.
Yeah.
So all this, like accumulation of environment, management, finance, accounting was to be documented, yes? And that is very recently, with the passage of time, there was a development of another, like international financial reporting standard by the IASB as well. That is the IFRS S1 and S2.
Yeah.
That is a specific standard for sustainability. So, like my specific domain, because I'm more into accounting and finance, so I studied, like, okay, how those organizations actually utilize that, how they were reporting, how actually in reality they were documenting the cost saving through, like minimizing waste.
Right.
But the whole concept started that, like you need to create an atmosphere within the organization that is very serious in protecting the environment. So that was actually, like the whole journey from the beginning till the end. And like how the conversation
Great. And I think it's really interesting to even know that such things are being brought into Pakistan. And for the viewers, I like to keep it as simple as possible. As I understand, not many people understand accounting and finance and all of that. So so I would like to clarify for the people watching that when we talk about normal accounting, which is the traditional accounting, the only thing that comes to my mind is numbers and balancing those books. So what is hard for me to understand is that how balancing of those books can be related to environment and how this environmental management accounting is different from traditional accounting. Is it something that runs on a different end, or is it something that is merged with that? So I'd like a bit of clarity on that for the viewers.
So like if we talk about accounting, all right? Accounting is specifically documenting, like various financial information, right?
Definitely.
That includes the receipts, specifically, like if a commodity is sold, you document a cash sale. Yes.
So in easy words, paisa kahan se aaya, kahan gaya.
There you go. All right. But in case of the environmental management accounting, it's an accounting framework which specifically looks at the environmental cost and benefit. You must be familiar with the term cost-benefit analysis.
Yeah, definitely.
So in a nutshell, environmental management accounting gives you a framework that you're actually comparing the environment cost and the environment benefit of certain, like decisions made by the organization. All right. So let's say, for example, like if you take an initiative of buying a new machine, right? Because various production companies have to produce the commodities. And that actually leads to wastages. If I'm, keeping it very simple, because a physical commodity is being produced. Yes. So in that case, you need to assess, number one, that how much wastage material-wise can be documented. All right. Let's say, like if you put the raw material in, वो कपड़ा खराब हो गया, material फट गया, सही है, वो कितना document होगा, number-wise कितना होगा. And then you also, take into aspect the other side of the story, that is the revenue side.
Exactly.
That, like on the other hand, if you buy that machine, and let's say, like you're only procuring it for the fact because you see that that's the next technology, and it simply, like would not waste the environment, or it has attributes.
So is it actually worth it?
There you go. So like it's not actually producing too much carbon footprints. All right. It's not, like damaging too much of the water, which simply, like is put into the sewers. Yes. So you're actually comparing those two by putting it onto the paper itself. Now I'll tell you the reason for doing it. With the passage of time, you can see that, like there have been a lot of institutions. By institutions, I mean the stakeholders, the shareholders, the investors, the governmental bodies, the suppliers,
the regulatory bodies,
the companies, yes, and the most basic, and that was something which is very surprising, even the customers. There was a survey that was, done, in some place, I believe, it was done in the UK or primarily in the US, I think. All right. So what that survey entailed was that majority of those multinational companies, primarily from textile, all right, they did a survey from the customers that would you be interested in purchasing the commodity of an organization which actually plays their part in sustaining the environment or doing something.
Yeah.
All right. Would you be interested? Now, it was very interesting to find out that 99% of the customers suggested that they would be more inclined towards purchasing commodities from any organization that at least plays any part.
Any part.
Now, with the passage of time, there is a concept of CSR. Sustainability. So every organization is trying their level best through any measure that they take. If they simply, provide any sort of safety gears, if they are simply, making the commodity and, the packaging is renewable, or it can be recycled. All right. They're using the bags which can be recycled. They are all showcasing it onto their various social platforms. They're documenting it.
Yeah, which is adding up to the brand images. Yeah.
So this was all required for the fact because all these companies from all industries were facing pressures from these big stakeholders. All right.
Right.
So, but in a nutshell, if I come back to your question, traditional accounting and environmental management accounting.
Yeah.
Traditional accounting deals with the specifically towards the financials of the organization.
Okay.
All right. Whereas in terms of environmental management accounting, you're going a way step. You're going a way beyond.
Yeah.
You're also looking at the repercussions.
Okay.
That in case of financial cost, by using EMA, you can actually produce or you can make a sale of 100,000.
Yeah.
All right, by procuring that machine, and the cost is going to be that maybe way prior to procuring the machine, you had a wastage of 50,000. But after procuring it, you might have a wastage cost of only 20,000.
20,000.
The material was only getting damaged to the extent.
So it's not only telling that how the wastage is going, it's also telling how you have to minimize it over time.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It makes you identify the exact processes, exact stages.
That,
stage 1 is where you clean the cloth. Stage 2 is where you put spray on it. Stage 3 is, so it gives you very specific guidelines that how you have to document the cost in each of those stages.
So it basically takes away the capitalism part and mixes with something which is related to a cause.
There you go.
Right. So I think this is something very interesting and this needs to be inculcated in all the accounting systems, I'd say, because right now, living in Lahore, looking at smog, I think we cannot say that climate change is not real. It is very much real and it's happening and we are looking at it from a very scary angle, I'd say. So, talking about whenever we talk about sustainability and climate action, as I just mentioned, that it is real, but there's still a certain group of people who exist who say that it is something just on the books, it is something just for the paps. So when we talk about environmental management accounting, I would believe that there would be a segment of people who would say that it's a fancy term for accounting and this is not the need of the hour. So if you can highlight a bit of how this is integral to the businesses, specifically you just mentioned the textile industry and in Pakistan that holds a major chunk of the industry. So if you can tell that how it is just not a fancy word and it is the need of the hour.
The thing is, primarily I'd like to start my answer by, if you're suggesting that in Pakistan, the concern is, so, that, majority of the big groups do not actually want to showcase a lot of information, right?
Exactly.
I'll be the first one.
Let's face that.
I'll be the first one to say it, but that is the harsh reality. Primarily, if you move towards the Western world, all right, first let's talk about that.
Okay.
The thing is, those organizations, those companies, they're actually, part of a regulatory system that actually has bounded them. Now, with the passage of time, Aman, you have seen history speaks for itself.
Yeah.
I'll not talk about, at the moment, Pakistan. I'll come back to it later. There has been the Enron scandal.
Definitely.
The Volkswagen emission scandal. And the list goes on and on. So, the pure objective of accounting was that we had to achieve transparency, accountability, credibility. That if there is
and build that trust for the people.
Yes. Yeah. Because, the concept itself that, all of the individuals, even, those individuals who are not from the accounting field, had studied that assets are equal to liabilities plus equity.
Yeah.
All right. So let's say, for example, if there is any individual who wants to invest in an organization, he would only be doing so if he would have a proper trust.
Definitely.
That the money that you're spending is, spent well. And you're also playing a good part in sustaining the environment.
Definitely.
Because that, with the passage of time, has been placed as a very important or an imperative feature that has to be put in place by every organization.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to transparency, which you were saying that many people do not want to put information on their books.
Yeah.
All right. The Western world are not 10, not 20, 100 steps ahead of us.
Definitely.
They have included, sadly,
yeah,
they have included something, where these big four accounting firms, because, I've been consulting with Deloitte.
Yeah.
So they have placed, the blockchain concept into account as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes away a little bit of freedom, I would say. And it actually enforces the organizations to actually post various information within the network of the accounting firm.
Yeah.
And you actually share that information with the interested parties. Now, what's happening is that, let's say, for example, I am party A, you're party B, and party C is actually the auditor of, let's say, Deloitte.
Yeah.
And, we have procured a new machine, which we claim, is a sustainable solution for our production department. All right. Now, I can't actually force the information because if I'm documenting onto the system of the accounting firm, which I'm referring to it as the blockchain and accounting.
Yeah.
All right. I am getting a copy, you're getting a copy, and a copy of this transaction is being placed to the accounting firm as well onto that network.
Yeah.
All right. Now, once
it's a very secure network, you cannot play around it.
Very secure network. And that is happening is because the companies are enforced to do so. That is the next step. That is where the technology aspect comes into account. That when these auditors, when various organizations, actually employed these big accounting firms, and they failed to actually report the true and fair view of the accounting information, even the environmental information, which is an integral part nowadays, which are, the SEC bounds, that you not only have to document the annual report, the financials, you also have to talk about the non-financials. You need to provide the sustainability report.
Yeah.
All right. So this is what the Western world is doing. Now, coming towards the other aspect or the other side of the story in case of Pakistan. The problem is that we don't have a high level of infrastructure.
And accountability system.
हम उसको बहुत प्यारे तरीके से कहते हैं, ठीक है, इससे आगे हम नहीं लेके चलेंगे, ठीक है. उसकी रीजन ये बिकॉज यहाँ पे बहुत सी ऐसी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं that they suggest that it's too highly, expenditure that the company has to entail. It's not as such.
Okay.
The thing is, you need to have, at least the intention itself that you want to document the true and fair view.
Exactly, because you're also documenting the rest of the things. Why not two more?
That's the thing.
Yeah.
So that is the number one problem. The other one is, as I mentioned, we don't have the appropriate infrastructure. We don't have, big accounting firms.
Yeah.
Sending in accountability, over here as well. So accountability softwares, in case of Deloitte, because they made the blockchain in accounting software by themselves, the network, which is referred to as Rubix.
Yeah.
All right. So we don't have it over here. We're still moving towards, ERP systems, moving towards, these tech-based organizations to actually, build in a new software where we can just, teach the new hirees or the new accountants that, how you need to document the information. But the problem still lies that information is only viewable by the organization itself. And it's tamper. It's tamper proof. Anybody can do it because you're not restricting the organization to providing the receipt to various individuals.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah.
So this is, I believe, it's a need of the hour that in case of even Pakistan, I do, understand that fintech is something which is now coming in Pakistan, but we're still at the nascent.
Very basic level.
It's at the very basic level. The transactions are happening using fintech. But in accounting, I think it's a high time because the objective of accounting, I would say again, was to achieve transparency. And the most basic was to achieve trust.
Yeah.
Yes?
The bare minimum.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Now, if we are not including, and after, having, I won't talk about the scandals in Pakistan, I'm so sorry. Even in this
we better not.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, definitely would not be doing that. But, we're not actually, a stranger to these concepts that these things actually occur in Pakistan.
Yeah.
All right. But still, the organizations are not actually investing in such a technology, which
is not a big deal, and it's not something really expensive. That should be like now. Finally, people are going for ERP. They're investing in that. But right now, as you mentioned, I think it's very rightly said that it's all about the intention, whether you have it or not, to actually do it.
I actually, talked to a few individuals from the industry, and it was because, you know, like my research primarily, you know, like for environmental management accounting and EMS is based on the textile sector. So, you know, like I talked to these few professionals of these big, you know, like firms, multinational, you know, like some, you know, like who are actually trying to extend their horizons, or, you know, like some other organizations coming in over here as well, trying to invest. So I talked about it that, you know, like why the organization is a bit hesitant in actually, you know, like providing various receipts.
Yeah, that's the matter of concern.
All right. So that, you know, like it actually, you know, like provides one step ahead.
One step ahead. And it's actually going to facilitate you because it's going to tell you where your money is going.
I think, you know, like it's going to provide a competitive advantage.
Exactly.
All right. To the organizations who implement such, you know, like a technology, if you want to say, and, you know, like a management style, what you want to say, whatever you want to call it. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
All right.
Because we saw that even the companies that went for ERP systems and the one who didn't, there was a stark difference between them.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So what they said was that the organization is a bit hesitant for the fact because the information itself is very sensitive. And the organization claims that, you know, like they want to keep that certain information actually, you know, like not viewable for, you know, like everybody to see.
Yeah.
But again, I think, you know, this is where the enforcers are actually a bit, you know, like leveraging these organizations. They're actually providing them with the leeway. They, you know, like still that they're not enforcing them. That now you need to implement the blockchain and accounting.
Yeah.
So that, you know, like if all of these organizations are enforced by this, so, you know, then there's no way out.
Right.
Then if you're providing, you know, like actually various receipts of, you know, the transactions happening, thousands of transactions every day, even related to procuring material that is environmentally friendly, documenting the environmental wastage, documenting the carbon footprint, assessing and identifying various materials that are getting wastage, getting the reasons as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, like again, as you mentioned, what is different? I'll go back to your question in financial, in, you know, like the accounting terms, the traditional accounting and the EMA, is you're actually also identifying the non-financial reasons that why this wastage occurred.
Yeah. And obviously, when you have a why, you have the answer to it as well, that this is how it will not occur.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, a really good researcher, Zhao Feng, you know, like in 2017, gave a really good, you know, like overview of this concept that the environmental management system, which in Pakistan and, you know, like all across the world, it is referred to as and known as the standard 14001.
Yeah.
Or 90101.
And yeah, we all have heard of that.
Yes. So the thing is, this framework provides us that the organizations, they identify the various wastages. Now, please do take into account that in case of wastage, you're not only talking about the material wastage. You're also talking about the lag. That, you know, like from one department, if the product was to be, you know, like produced in, let's say, 15 minutes or 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So you're also seeing if there is a lag.
Yeah, you're taking into account the efficiency.
You're identifying each and every aspect of a wastage. Now, the wastage actually, you know, like is extended in terms of the meaning.
Yeah.
Once you've identified it, you actually assess what is the concern and you put countermeasures on it. Yeah. This is what Zhao Feng said.
Yeah.
Identify, assess, put countermeasures, reevaluate.
Right.
All right. And it brings me to this example of a car manufacturing company. Now, this is a realistic situation. It's a case study where what a car manufacturing business does is, number one, they identify, you know, like various stages.
Yeah.
So what the stages were that, you know, like the car was getting washed, some were getting dust filtered, some were simply, you know, like getting their paints, you know, like done again.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, once they actually identified that was a service that car, you know, like business was doing. All right. After that, they assessed that, okay, what were the wastages occurring? Now, in case of that, what they were doing was that the material, the water, all right, that they were using to, you know, like actually clean the car. Yes.
Yeah, it was going, you know, all in excess.
All right. Yeah. That was happening, but it's one step a little bit, you know, like more tricky than that. So what they did was they assessed that how much chemical was actually included in the water that was, you know, like after cleaning the car.
Yeah.
They were storing it before leaving it, or you can say, you know, like sending it towards the sewers. First, they were actually, you know, like getting it all accumulated in one place.
Yeah.
And they were you can say not re-evaluating. They were actually, you know, like trying to, you know, like put in various chemicals to first of all clean the chemical water before, you know, like sending it into the sewers.
Yeah.
This is how you actually minimize waste. Now, when such such word of mouth or such information simply hits the market,
consumer as well.
That is how you're actually able to augment your overall processes without disrupting the quality,
right?
And without disrupting the revenue generation of an organization.
Definitely. And I think this explains it well, that it is a win-win situation for all of the parties. It is for the businesses, it is for the consumer, it is for the environment, and there's no question in that whether that needs to be implemented or not. And I'd also like to mention that how there are certain export measures, and we always talk about how the exports of Pakistan are going to be the backbone of the economy, and then there comes the companies like Zara and their Gap and all of them who have these certain level of expectations when they're procuring from a country, that they are taking into account all the accountability measures. So I think that's also going to help the businesses in one way or another.
That's absolutely true. And with the passage of time, I'm glad to see that our textile organizations, which has been enforced a lot by the Textile Association of Pakistan, where a lot of policies, a lot of tax imposition on various wastages have been imposed. And all these organizations are now simply bringing in the next tech in case of production. But again, if you're comparing it with the quality of these big brands or multinational companies, of course we still have a lot of work to do. But I think quality wise, we're still enhancing to the extent that we are competing in the outside world. Our product, in case of textile wise, as you said, it contributes a very high level. For the exports, and the import as well, and in terms of contribution in the GDP as well.
Definitely.
All right, so we are still one of the high level or major competitors in the outside market.
So if only we could tap this potential as well, I think that will add up to the potential that we already have in the country. So these were the challenges, and these were the causes why EMA should be a thing. It should come in Pakistan more readily. It should be adopted by businesses more readily. And these were some of the concerns that people have, that they cannot really be really transparent. They have not been really transparent. So now if we talk about the barriers to the entry, that now let's suppose there are people who are ready to take the step forward. So what do you think is stopping them? Do we do not have the enough technology? Do we not have the enough human capital? What is the main barrier you think that's not letting that happen?
Aman, if you ask me for the solution, all right, the solution that I mentioned, that we need to include blockchain in accounting. And
has it, sorry to cut you, but has it been in Pakistan in any other firm, or is it just a foreign concept to us? Not at all.
No, we do not have it over here.
Okay.
All right, for the fact, because as I mentioned that actually these networks are placed by the accounting firms themselves. All right, and they are simply providing you can say a medium for all these organizations to document their information. All right, not only in their respective systems, but also provide a copy of the interested parties for that transaction. And the company decides. It's not like that, it's not a distributed, transaction that you can actually make it viewable for everyone to see. It doesn't happen as such. You're only allowing the interested specific parties to actually view that information. It's just providing you with the assurance the information is reliable, that you're providing a copy that was agreed upon by the interested individuals, and it can no way be tampered. How is it beneficial for the environmental management accounting or the environment aspect is that when you're actually documenting not only the financials, not only the non-financials, but also the cost benefit analysis in terms of the environment. If you're procuring a raw material which is environmentally friendly, how many labor hours were spent, how much material was wasted, what was the reason? Yes.
Makes
and
sense.
You're also placing in various like you can say it's all about data entry. Yes. But you're actually providing a copy of that in that network.
And there's a double check and balance.
There's a double check.
All
right, and it's tamper free, because once if I have documented the transaction onto that network,
it cannot be changed.
And once we all, let's say I allow you to view that information, and there's the accounting firm itself, once we've agreed on the information, after that a block has been created, and it cannot be changed until and unless all three of us agree on the alteration. So let's say if anybody wants to change it, and the change actually goes way beyond. It's very difficult because the concept of proof of stake, proof of work comes into account. I won't go into that. Keeping the information to the minimal. In case of environment, it will be helpful for the fact because when you're documenting the sustainable solutions, or let's say, like if a company actually engaged in a certification.
Yeah.
All right, because various organizations are doing certifications for 9001 so that they get certified. If you're also including the certification, the information of the certification, what information you provided, what licenses did the company procure, what initiatives were taken by the organization.
Exactly.
All right, where the wastage were minimized, what concern was identified. If you're also putting out this information onto that network, all right, the reliability is going to be much higher.
Much higher, definitely.
All right, and that is where the company can achieve competitive advantage, which has been proof. We have a lot of studies from the Western society and the Western world, which actually have implemented this.
Yeah.
The thing is that this network is not to be developed by only one organization.
There needs to be a culture needs to come in.
A culture needs to come in. There you go.
Yeah.
So you need a whole network put into place by these accounting firms over here in Pakistan. And then we need the enforcers, the regulators to regulate these organizations to come into this network.
Exactly.
And document your information right over there so that it cannot be tampered. That would also minimize the case of fraud, minimize the case of not wanting to put in information.
Yeah.
You're enforced.
Exactly.
You have to. What you're saying over here is that at the end of the year the company has to prepare the annual report. All right. But if throughout the year you're actually documenting the information onto that network, just think about the transparency, the trust overall, the comparability, the faithful representation. These concepts, the words that I'm saying are actually, you can say the backbone of any accounting.
Any accounting, yes.
All right. So that is how, we in Pakistan need to bring in these overall, as you said, you just put it in a nutshell, a whole culture.
A whole culture.
That has to come in.
So do you see it coming anytime soon?
If you want a
realistic answer to that.
An honest answer, it's a long way to go. We still have a long way to go because as I just mentioned, we're still at the very basic stages, very nascent stages for the fintech inclusion as well.
Yeah, even in tech, I think we have progressed much, but we are in the very stages. As when you were mentioning the blockchain, the first thing that came to my mind was that how secure is that going to be? But since with the inclusion of AI and everything, all our life is exposed to, I don't feel that anything that ChatGPT doesn't know about me. Very interestingly, a couple of days ago, I asked it some question and it told me something about me which I have never told him. So that was scary to the point. Yeah. So one concern for the people in Pakistan would be that how secure is this system going to be if we bring blockchain? Is it going to be pirated? Is it going to be
a fair enough question, and I think it's really awesome. Yeah. So the specific concept primarily of blockchain, because majority of the individuals actually confuse it with cryptocurrencies and fintech technologies such as Ethereum and henceforth. It is an inclusion of that, but primarily there is a huge different domain. Primarily on the other end or the other side, how you use blockchain network in accounting. So that is very different from actually, Ethereum and stuff like that, right? So number one, as you said, how is it tamper-free? Is it pirated? So the thing is, as I mentioned, that let's say if any specific interested party or the company documents their information onto the network, number one, the block only would be created once all the validators of that specific transaction agrees to it. Number one. Agrees to what information? Let's say I purchased some sustainable resources from you.
Okay.
At a price of, let's say, $30. 100 units.
Yeah.
Yes. I agree to pay you $1,000.
1,000.
At, let's say, the end of November. All right. I document this specific information that I just mentioned onto that network.
Yeah.
Now it is viewable to you as well. It is viewable to, let's say, I give the access to the accounting firm itself as well.
So I'll approve it. I'll mention that.
You'll approve it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And this is where number one, number two, you, and number three being the accounting firm are all on the same page.
Same page. And they're locking that information.
You're locking that information. Yeah. Now, once that's been locked, it is very difficult to actually change it for the fact Because let's say if any one of us want to alter it,
Yeah.
all right, what's going to happen is a notification would be provided to the other validators that this information is getting altered. Do you agree to the change?
Exactly.
Will disapprove. But I'll move one step ahead. There is a concept of a proof of work and a proof of stake. And as the name states, proof of work. That is that if any specific party wants to change that information, let's say I want to, I mentioned some information for sustainable initiative that was taken by the organization. We actually, were able to provide some solutions for a problem that we studied, or we simply, actually realized in our, production processes. That let's say the, company was putting in all the material waste, that is in case of cardboard and metals, all together.
Yeah.
Now the solution that we provided was that we make specific different bins.
Yeah.
Within our production process, big, organizational bins, where you're actually separating the material wastage of, 100 pieces of cardboard and 30, pieces of metal, getting separately documented.
Yeah.
And if somebody wants to change it, the proof of work algorithm actually would disable the, person who's trying to change it, that he would actually have to change all
of it,
all of the information and all the, blocks that would have been, linked to that transaction. Hence the name blockchain. Because there are, specific many information that would be documented. And those blocks would be getting merged. So the proof of work is going to be, if I change any information from one block, all the prior blocks would have to be altered. And that is where it gets really frustrating. Now, with the passage of time, these big accounting firms have even gone one step ahead. The proof of stake.
Yeah.
This means that, let's say, for example, if anybody alters it, and let's say I was party A, you were party B, and party C was some, accounting firm. The system, the network, gives party C the, you can say, validating authority that they can either accept the change or reject the change. Now let's say...
Hence the name, the stake. Yeah.
The stake.
Yeah.
Now the stake over here for the validating party is that they would have certain amount charged for validating that transaction.
Okay.
And if they would be, validating fraudulent, transactions, which have been, nullified by the other validators, his stake would be cancelled. For the following, transactions that would be put into place, and henceforth he would not be validating. So the money, of course, he's being charged. The stake is that he is being charged for validating that transaction.
Yeah.
And he is chosen as the validator because he actually is honest.
Honest party.
He actually looks at the information in a very strict manner. He, investigates that all the information is, true and fair. That is
very interesting.
The proof of stake.
That's very interesting, and I think that answers the question that how it is something which is very well thought through, but it is something so complicated, I would say, and something really techie that it will take it time to come to Pakistan, I believe. Yeah. And it will, as we said before, it will take a whole culture of regulations and all to come. But let's hope that we're looking at a greener times for Pakistan when this will come. I am a very hopeful person in that aspect. So lastly, sir, it's been a pleasure hosting you, and it has been a very informational session, as we all have gotten to know something which was a foreign concept. So at last, I would like you to give a message to the green entrepreneurs that I believe are now coming in Pakistan, are changing their perspectives, that how we need to push through to create some sort of a culture where we're not only talking about the capitalistic aspect, but we're also taking into account the environment. So just a message for the people watching.
All right. So one thing that I would like to start off for my lovely viewers who are actually watching this podcast is that, please, in Pakistan there is a culture that we do not honestly look at the prior research. We actually do not have a lot of faith. All right. Now, it was a very basic concept of the various policies, or you can say various initiatives taken by the government. A lot of research has been done by a lot of academicians and research scholars. So as I mentioned that, the example that I gave in my talk, that was related to that, say, implementing the environmental management system. Now, what that car washing business did was that, please identify the various issues in your stages. The problem is that, like we actually do not want to put up that effort. I'm so sorry to say, but that is the harsh reality. All right, we do not identify, we do not go to the basic level. So if we're not identifying, we're not moving towards wanting to, like implement the countermeasures. If you're not identifying the concerns, a lag of 10 minutes is a lag. Where you can actually be a step ahead of your competitor by producing more commodities. If you're able to identify it and then implement a countermeasure, now that can be of anything. Maybe you investigate, you get to know that the labor that has been implemented or has been employed is not, skilled. You provide them training, all right? So once you've identified the problems, you implement the countermeasures and then you reevaluate, all right? So, and how the accounting documentation can be done is, which I, talking to various individuals from the Western community, from the Oxford Union, from, big names from the London School of Economics, from King's College, even from Deloitte and, from other parts of the world, all of these specific, professionals from the field and from the academic world agree to this concept that, specifically, if you're documenting your financial and non-financial information, plus the wastage in terms of cost and benefit in a true and fair manner, it will lead towards competitive advantage and that will enhance the firm performance. This is something which I believe if we are able to achieve in Pakistan by these organizations, I think, we can actually be one of, and we can enhance our overall revenue generation and overall enhance the economy as well.
Perfect. I think this is the way to put it, and I believe that, and if few businesses take it from this podcast, this will be a positive contribution. So thank you so much, sir, again for joining me today, and thank you to the people watching. We'll be back with another episode very soon. Allah Hafiz.